All right, got a fun episode for you guys today on living in Denver. I moved back to Denver about 5 years ago after being up in the mountains for about 15 years. And in this video, I'm gonna be sharing with you guys 3 things that I just wish people would have talked about and told me before moving back to Denver, the Mile High City. So you're not gonna wanna miss this episode, and you're especially not gonna wanna miss the 3rd thing I'm gonna be sharing with you, because this one blew me away and it's got a lot of value. I'm really excited to share it with you. So let's go ahead and get started on a brand new episode of Living in Denver. Let's go. All right, so as I said, today's gonna be all about these 3 things that 5 years ago when I moved back to Denver, I just wish other people would have talked about and would have shared with me, because at the time, it wasn't even on my radar. And if I knew these things, who knows, maybe I would have decided about a different place to consider moving. So really excited to share all this with you guys. But before we get started, as I said, my name is Adam Lang. I've been doing these videos for over 2 years now, and I love connecting with viewers like yourselves, people that are considering moving here to the Mile High City, and hopefully just finding a few ways that I can provide value. So if you guys haven't yet, make sure you guys hit that like and that subscribe button down below, and all that info on the screen. Reach out, shoot me a text, give me a call, write me a quick email, just let me know a little bit more about you guys. And I promise you guys, I can provide value in a few different ways today, even if you're not seriously moving in the near future. Let's go ahead and get started though. Again, these 3 things that I am really excited to share with you. All right, so the first of these 3 is gonna be about mountain traffic and just what it takes nowadays to get up and enjoy a day in the mountains. I'm gonna use skiing as an example, because that's one of my favorite activities and what I'm typically doing on the weekends if I am trying to get up to the mountains. And 5 years ago, again, when I moved back to Denver from living up in Aspen, I was just blown away at the difference in traffic and just the commute, or should I say the struggle of getting up to go skiing for a day on a weekend in January or February, prime ski season. I got spoiled, let's be honest here. Living up in Aspen, I was able a lot of times just to walk from my front door with my skis over my shoulder to catch a lift. So, again, no pity parties, but I just wanted to make the point that, when I came back down to Denver, it was such a slap in the face. I could not believe just how much it had worsened from when I had lived in Denver before. And, it's to the point now where, honestly, I just don't even go skiing nearly as much because it's gotten that bad. On a weekend, let's just say it snows a lot on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and you got Saturday and Sunday off and you want to go skiing on Saturday. If you're not getting up and out the door by 5 to 5:30 a.m., I'm pretty much going to guarantee you're going to be in gridlock for a minimum of 2 hours, if not maybe even 3, to get to the majority of the mountains up I-70. And, that just is enough, in my opinion, to just put a sour taste in your mouth and just not want to do that on a weekly basis. That's just going up. That's 3 hours potentially just going one way. You got just as much of a commute going back home. And when you're going back home, your legs are tired and everybody's maybe a little bit hungry, or just wanting to get home. It tends to get even worse on the drive home is what I'm trying to get at. But, this traffic had just gotten so much worse, and I just wish somebody would have kind of told me about that before moving back to Denver and having, skiing continue to be one of the activities I was really excited just to keep up on. So if skiing is still something that you're really excited about doing here in Denver, I don't want to be a total doomsdayer here, but strategy really comes into play here. So whether you're able to leave at 5 a.m., that is one option, but I would say the better, in my opinion, solution would be to try and ski on a weekday, or try and get a group of friends together and just rent a condo for the weekend, where once you get up there, you can relax, just stay up there for a night or 2, and then, that second day, you don't have to deal with this. You can just get on the mountain leisurely and not have to worry about the traffic. So when you're driving up to the mountains from Denver, there's really just a few spots on I-70 that tend to be the worst. And this is for almost every ski area. There are a few where you can avoid this altogether, but the first one is what's called Floyd Hill. Floyd Hill is just this really long, just kind of steady incline, depending on what direction you're going, but just a long, steady incline. And you get to this point where there's a sharp turn, and for some reason, it's just enough to really create havoc on I-70 with traffic backing up. The good news is, well, good and bad news. The good news is this is being currently resolved by a massive redevelopment of the highway in this section to create a much more efficient kind of turn where I'm talking about here. So that's the good news. It won't be like that forever. The bad news is they're doing this construction right now, and in the next couple of years, it's a huge pain in the you-know-what. I actually went skiing this past weekend on a Monday. We were really excited going up on a weekday, not going to be any traffic. It was a beautiful sunny day. And of course, we left my house at about 8:30, and by about 8:50, we got to this section on Floyd Hill, and it was just a complete stop. They're actually at a point now where the highway is closing one direction at a time for about 30 minutes to help with rock mitigation and help to start expanding this section of road. So now, even, in a beautiful time of year where there's not typically any traffic on a weekday, we still got stuck in it. So in the short term, this is going to be a headache, but in the long term, it's going to pay off. And eventually, hopefully this part will be improved. However, the next part that always bogs down the traffic on I-70 is Eisenhower Tunnel. And Eisenhower Tunnel is, once you move out here, you're going to get to know this tunnel very well because it's really the main tunnel that everybody drives through just to get up to the ski towns. And I remember as a kid when Eisenhower Tunnel actually used to be way, way smaller. It used to just be this very small kind of tunnel, a hole in the mountain, one for each side of the highway, one going west, one going east. And they did a massive improvement where they widened the entire tunnel. I think it took them probably like 3 years. It was one of the largest road construction projects that I can remember in my lifetime here in Colorado, but it was a massive improvement when they did that. So it has gotten better, but that just is always still one of the other spots where traffic always tends to really get backed up. Luckily, CDOT, or the Colorado Department of Transportation, they've also since put in HOV, or high occupancy vehicle lanes, and they transition this depending on what time of day it is to help with the flow of traffic. So there are some other options now, including just paying for the toll lane. So you can improve your commute time a little bit, but I don't care what you're doing in that special lane or not, you're still going to be faced with a lot more traffic than maybe what you're expecting if you are moving out here from out of state and skiing's high on your list. Just be aware that, again, you want to be kind of thinking through the days that you're going, and ideally going on a weekday or finding some friends or people to go with you and getting a place up in the mountains in that ski town for the weekend. Now, before we move on, I also want to share with you guys another kind of quick local tip. And that's going to be, there are a couple roads you can take as an alternative to I-70, especially to avoid this Floyd Hill section of highway. So the first one is you actually take Highway 6 through what's called Clear Creek Canyon. And this is just a separate canyon that actually takes you directly into the town of Golden. Or if you're going west and you stay on 6, it'll actually take you to Blackhawk or Central City, which is the only kind of two little areas in Colorado where we have gambling. So cool spot to check out too if you guys haven't been up there, but this Highway 6 Clear Creek Canyon is a nice alternative. However, the cat's out of the bag. A lot of people know about that too, and especially anybody that lives in Boulder or Northwest Arvada or even Golden and Wheat Ridge. A lot of the places on the northwestern side of town, this is just a better way for them to go regardless. So you do have a lot of traffic still coming through Clear Creek Canyon with those people. So, it is an alternative and is sometimes a better solution, but just be aware that it also could get bogged down. And then the other one is actually called Highway 285. And this is close to where I live in Littleton. And in the summertime, I love Highway 285 because you can actually take this all the way up to Buena Vista and then take it slightly from there over to get onto Highway 24, which will then eventually take you to the back way up to Aspen through Independence Pass. So there are some other ways to get to the majority of the mountains. The summertime, very easy to do. In the wintertime, you could be faced with some bad road conditions. And if you're going up on a ski weekend and using Highway 285, you're gonna have to only take it a certain length of time before you're gonna wanna cut off of there, which will take you a back way into some of the ski areas like Breckenridge and also Copper Mountain. So if those are areas that maybe you're trying to go skiing at specifically, this could be a great option. So little local tip for you. All right, so the second thing I want to share with you that I didn't know about when I moved back to Denver 5 years ago, and part of this was also me maybe being a little naive on some of the extra costs that go into owning real estate, but this one's going to be all about some of these hidden fees and the HOA or homeowner association fees that you might not be expecting to pay if you are considering buying a home out here in Denver. So HOAs are very common out here in Colorado, and these are just areas of developments where to help pay for some of the extras or the amenities, you have what's called an HOA. So there's almost always going to be HOAs anytime you're in a master plan community. Right now I live in one down in Littleton called Grant Ranch. There's also the largest in the entire state, a little bit southeast of me in Highlands Ranch. So there's lots though of HOAs all over the state. But HOAs can significantly, affect what your budget is for your monthly costs of owning a home. HOAs can vary. Some are as low as, $50 or $100. Others can be as high as maybe $200, $300, $400. Also, there's oftentimes you'll find areas that have multiple HOAs. So as an example, where I live in Grant Ranch, I only have one HOA where I'm at right now. However, there's one little subdivision right next to me. I take my dog Charlie on a walk through this neighborhood every day practically, and it's called Belvedere. So in addition to that single HOA that I have, they actually pay a second one. And the second one is for a couple things. They have a private security that occasionally drives through the neighborhood, and also they have their own private dock. So the neighbors in this Belvedere community can have a pontoon boat and actually have additional access to the lake that I have. I still have direct access where I live, but I don't have that additional second dock area where I could have my pontoon boat, docked in the actual neighborhood that I'm living in. So that's just an example though, where some neighborhoods have multiple HOAs. But what I really want to talk about on this point isn't the HOAs, it's just these other additional fees and also more specifically taxes that you're going to find in certain areas, especially with new developments. So right now where I'm at, as an example, the tax rate, so the property tax rate is at about 0.4%. So right at about 0.5%. And that's pretty average for the entire city of Denver. Whenever I have people asking me about property taxes, I always like to start there and say, that typically you can assume about 0.5% is what your annual property taxes are going to be. So let's just use a $500,000 home as an example. You're looking at paying about $2,500, maybe a little bit less than that over the course of a year for your annual property taxes on a $500,000 house. However, these new build communities can bump that significantly higher. The Sterling Ranch is one of my favorites right now, and it's actually located a little bit further southwest from where I'm at in a deeper part of southwest Littleton. Beautiful area. It's right up against the mountains. It's close to Roxborough, which is a really fun area that has cool red rock formations. It's also where my favorite golf course, Arrowhead, is, and it's actually also where Lockheed Martin is based for an aeronautical engineering company. But in the Sterling Ranch area, it is pretty much brand new. They've been building homes over there for about 5 to 7 years now, and it's starting to look a little bit more like an actual community. But a lot of times these HOAs, and more specifically these new build communities, they have a second, what's called a metro tax district, where you're going to be paying an additional amount, and not indefinitely, but for a period of time to help offset any of these infrastructure costs that it takes just to build up this brand new community. Roads, sidewalks, parks, all that kind of stuff can partially help get subsidized by these metro tax districts. So Sterling Ranch, we'll use this again as an example, just the annual property tax over there, the rate is at about 1.4 to 1.6%. So instead of on that $500,000 home, instead of paying about $2,500 on that community, you're paying maybe closer to $7,500. So significant difference, especially when you break that out on a monthly basis. And if you are trying to stay on a budget and you have a very kind of a strict amount that you're trying to spend each month to make sure that you qualify for your loan and you're able to live comfortably and not extending yourself too much, something to keep in mind. I never had really realized how dramatic of a difference one neighborhood could have to the next, but biggest thing to take into consideration here is just looking into the neighborhoods, and if it's a newer built community, odds are you're going to have a higher tax rate, or at least you're going to have some form of a metro tax district to further increase your costs of living in that area. All right, and then the third and final point I want to make about, something that I didn't really think about before moving back here to Denver is just the cost of some of these activities that are, again, why so many people are moving out here to Denver. Just the cost of a lot of these activities has just gone up so much in the last, 5 years, maybe the last 10 years, but I've noticed it since moving back about 5 years ago. And it's not just, things like, the cost to buy a mountain bike or the cost to buy a pair of skis or a ski pass. Yes, all of that stuff does come into play here, but it's just overall, just the cost of these activities just really seems to have skyrocketed. Golf courses where it used to be maybe a $40 fee for not only the 18 holes, but also for your golf cart rental. Now all of a sudden they're $80, $90, $100. Just going skiing. I did a whole separate episode on living in Denver about this a few weeks back, about just what it would cost a family of 4 to go skiing for a weekend. And I won't talk about it as in much depth right now, but you think about the passes or the ski day lift tickets, your equipment, your gear, your helmet, your jacket, your pants, your underlayers, your goggles, your helmet, all that stuff. If you aren't experienced and you need lessons, and just the cost of having a reliable vehicle to take you to the mountains, as well as the cost of gas. In the video I did about this earlier in the year, we added up all these costs, and it could be $2,000 to $3,000 just to take a family of 4 skiing for a couple days. And let's be honest, who has the ability to do that on a regular basis? Not that many Americans. So skiing is one example of this, but just overall, when I moved back to Denver, I was just kind of blown away at just really the barrier of entry some of these sports have nowadays for people even that live in Denver, that it's just out of their budget to go skiing anymore. And that goes the same thing with golf and some of these other sports. It also even goes into play when we're talking about going to see a concert at Red Rocks. So I want to talk about that one today instead of skiing. So with Red Rocks, this is something that is very, very near and dear to my heart. One of my favorite things to do in Denver is to go check out live music at Red Rocks Amphitheater. If you guys don't know about Red Rocks, first of all, get under the red rock that you're hiding under, because it is the best outdoor music venue in the world. And it's not just me that's saying that. It's actually recently been ranked as the top venue, in a lot of different magazines and different polls. There's just a ton of stuff out there online if you want to look into Red Rocks Amphitheater and what makes it so special. But, I actually worked there for several years in high school, going into college. So I actually helped a friend of mine start a vodka lemonade business here. And we actually had 3 different stands in the Red Rocks Amphitheater where we sold these vodka lemonades. And so I was at Red Rocks all the time. In fact, I think for a couple seasons, I went to every single show that was there in the entire year. So I don't know how many shows I've seen at Red Rocks. It's probably 300 or more at this point. But what blew me away when I moved back to Denver was just the cost of just going up to see a show. And it's not just the cost of buying the concert tickets. That's a whole separate rabbit hole to go down. Where before you could easily buy a ticket and have it be face value, nowadays there's all these bots and things online that are basically buying up all the tickets immediately as soon as they go on sale, and then you're forced to pay twice the retail amount for these resale tickets. So right there, you're already paying $150 to $200 per concert ticket. But the bigger piece to this is a couple things. First off, you're not allowed to keep your car there overnight, so you don't have the ability to drive up and then after you've had a few drinks with your friends, leave your car there and take a cab home. You're forced, if you're driving, you got to take your car up, but you also got to take it out of there at the end of the night. That's going to be an hour long at least, just traffic jam, just getting your car out of there around a lot of other cars that you're not quite sure about the quality of drivers at that point. But what most people do, myself included, is we always take Ubers there. Take a Lyft, take a shared ride service. And it's pretty easy getting out there because everybody's getting there early or late. You can get there, a couple hours before the show starts and kind of pregame in one of the parking lots before the doors open. That's what we always like to do. But getting out of there is just the biggest nightmare ever. They used to allow Lyft to pick you up in multiple different places around Red Rocks. Now they've isolated it all just to one place. So you imagine, you get out of the concert, you're tired, everybody just wants to, get out of there and get back home or go somewhere else afterwards. And nowadays, it is this headache where you get to this one stand and you've got probably 100 Lyft cars trying to see if one of those is yours. You got people that have cash on them. They're trying to bribe the Lyft drivers, maybe the one that you already ordered, to just take them instead and take this cash as a tip. It just becomes this huge headache and very expensive. What would normally be maybe a $30 to $40 Lyft expense just to take the lift out there. Going home, it could be a $200 lift expense just to get out of there. So they bump up the fees big time. So, again, just doing some quick napkin math, let's just say you got a date night, you're taking your significant other out to a concert, you're looking at maybe $300 to $400 just in the concert tickets. These vodka lemonades that are really good that I've been talking about, those are 10 to 12 bucks a piece. Maybe you're spending $100 or more on drinks and some food. Then you got your lift there and back. You're looking at a $500 night just to go see a concert. So some of these activities like this have just gotten so blown out of proportion with how expensive they are. I'm just finding myself just not going to as many concerts and not just doing some of these activities as often as I used to. And, before I moved back down here, I just had no idea that some of this stuff like this was just so much more expensive. So, all right, so that was a really fun episode, you guys. Definitely sharing some stuff that I didn't know before I moved back down to Denver here about 5 years ago, and just hopefully some things that maybe you guys can take home with you, and just remember, if you are considering moving out here, to keep in the back of your mind, and hopefully don't make the same mistakes I did, and just do things the right way with intention. And if you do that, you're going to be able to do all these fun activities and great things that Denver has to offer without hopefully having it break the bank. But before we leave, I just want to remind you guys one last time that I do have an incredible set of resources available on my website, including a locals guide to Denver, over 20 of the best areas in town to check out, best parks, restaurants, bars, schools in the area, best farmers markets, literally everything that you need to know about 20 of my personal favorite neighborhoods as a 40+ year Colorado native. So don't miss out on that. Download a free copy, go to my website, where I'll have a link down below in the show notes. And until next week, I just look forward to seeing you guys. Again, thanks so much for watching this one, and I'll look forward to seeing you guys next week on a brand new episode of Living in Denver. I'll see you then. Bye.